Welcome, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman. A few years ago, I wrote and performed a solo show called The Edge of Every Day, which was an exploration of the rough edges and contradictions we all face and grapple with. The show hit a nerve, and the relevance of the topic would only grow over time more than I could have foreseen. So here we are. Real talk with real people, sharing stories and perspectives that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe, on the edge of everything. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on the edge of every day here on talkradio.nyc. Tonight, we are live in the Hive with singer-songwriter Meg Flather for our 49th episode entitled An Artist's Edge of Grief. For those of you who have become loyal listeners, thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with me and my guests. Our numbers keep growing, and I have you to thank. I couldn't do it without you. Please continue to share this podcast with friends and family, and take a moment to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Sandra Bargman, On the Edge of Every Day. And if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to The Edge. If you like what you hear and you want to check out my past episodes with my inspiring guests, you can find them on talkradio.nyc or on your favorite podcast platforms or on my YouTube channel. Again, Sandra Bargman, On the Edge of Every Day. This show is about pushing boundaries and exploring rough edges. Through conversations and shared stories with friends and colleagues, it's my hope that we can begin to understand our edges. And what I mean by edges is those places where we are fearful, those places where we are resistant to change, those places where paradoxes and contradictions live, and our beliefs and our understandings, both about ourselves and about the world around us. Listen, we live in edgy, tumultuous times, and people are complex. The more we recognize our own edges and get real about them, the more we can help others to do the same, and that, I fully believe, can help to change the world. So thanks again for tuning in. And without further ado, it is time to introduce our guest this week. Meg Flather is a 2-time Bistro Award winner and a 4-time Manhattan Association of Cabaret and Clubs, MAC, Award winner, who recently won the 2021 BroadwayWorld.com Cabaret Award for Best Song. Meg has released 8 CDs of her original music, all of which are available on Apple Music. Meg has also authored 2 books that are now available on Amazon: Home Shopping Diva, Lessons, Lyrics, and Lipstick, and Hold On Tight, A Love Story. Her new one-woman musical, Hold On Tight, partners her original songs and stories from her book of the same name about caring for a parent with dementia. The piece premiered at the United Solo Theater Festival this year at NYC's Theater Row, where it won the festival's award for Best Storytelling Show. In addition, she has written and recorded songs for independent films off-Broadway and on behalf of HIV, AIDS, 9/11, Alzheimer's, autism, suicide awareness, political activism, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Meg has been a featured performer at New York's 54 Below, the Laurie Beachman Theater, the Triad, Urban Stages, Webster Hall, the Tribeca Film Festival, the Philippine Consulate, Mohonk Mountain House, and jazz at Lincoln Center's Rose Theater for the 2018 and 2022 Mabel Mercer Cabaret Conventions. Meg recently made her debut at the Provincetown Cabaret Festival and at Boston's Club Cafe. She has appeared on all home shopping networks in the US, Canada, and Australia, and proudly serves as brand ambassador for Strivectin Skincare on HSN and TSC Canada. Meg attended the High School of Music and Art in Harlem, and then NYU's Tisch School of Arts and the State University of New York, SUNY. Meg is a member of New York's 117-year-old The Dutch Treat Club for Performance and Literary Artists, as well as the American Songbook Association, which promotes music appreciation in the New York City public schools. Welcome, Meg Flather.
Hey.
Hey.
Who is that woman?
Who is that woman? That's a glorious woman. Oh, I am so thrilled to have you on the edge of every day to share your story and your wisdom and warmth and joy.
Oh, I am honored. I'm honored to be here and on this Monday and this interesting time of year where a lot is swirling, and it's a perfect grounding to be here with you, my friend.
Oh, it's definitely a lot of swirling. The letting go and the going within and the recalibrating of the winter season. It is rich, and it's a perfect time to be, certainly celebrating the joy and the triumphs that you have had. And the one that I'm most wanting to focus in on is around grief, because I feel as though grief being a very, very isolating and winter emotion that we in we're so afraid to navigate grief. We just are, as a society, I just need to think happy thoughts and get through it, as opposed to the embrace of it and the allowance of it to change us.
It's funny. I find that being in a state of grief makes me feel much more awake and alive.
It's great powers.
And grounded to feel more authentic in the different rooms of my life.
Yeah.
And then through that, I actually lift up my mood. It's been a strange gift because I inherited my dear mother's spinning qualities when, anxiety is a real thing. And anxiety can be used. We would clean the house so well with our anxiety. Vacuuming.
All right. How can I channel this? Yeah. No, exactly. But I mean, that's really it. How can I channel my anxiety? How can I be present to and real about this emotion and not medicate it and not run away from it and channel it, like I always say, channeling my anger, with the political scene in which we are in. Well, and that's a perfect seg for me to talk about how I know you, which I love to do with my guests, share how I know my guests, share with my listeners how I know my guests. And I mean, I assume they've all gathered that I know Meg from, oh, maybe not. I know Meg from the New York City cabaret community, where Meg is a beloved performer and, as you heard, a multi-award winning singer-songwriter. And I don't quite remember the actual moment that you and I met, but I think of you in terms of the Blue Wave shows. And we got a shout out to Stephen Hanks, our fearless leader in creating those. And channeling, to our earlier point about channeling, not running away from our emotions and finding ways to utilize them and channel them in more constructive and positive ways. And we did just that.
Yes. And we were successful.
We were indeed.
We had quite the wave in 2000.
And it was because of our show, I know.
Absolutely.
Steve knows that. But they were so, I mean, at a time, well, we're still in that time, but we've had a bit of a respite with the most recent midterms. We're still hanging on to democracy by the hair of our chinny chin chin, but it was such a fantastic way for all of us to plug in to feeling connected and to hope, to the best of who we are. And that's a great seg, of course, into the power of art to heal. We were using that around our fear around what was happening on the political landscape. So before we get into any of that, I have a favorite question that I'm asking most of my guests now. And, you know, everyone that I'm getting on really wears so many hats. And you, of course, wear a plethora of them. And in all of the work, how we weave all of the work that we do and step forward with our own voice, I'm really loving asking everyone, what identity or identities do you, Meg Flather, lead with?
I think the most important goal for me, and I think it's since I was conceived, is this overwhelming need to connect. It's all it's ever been. And that's because of a lot of reasons, but a lot of it was I was raised overseas. I was a Peace Corps baby. I was born in the Philippines in 1964. And my father was the first Peace Corps director of Micronesia and Malaysia. And my parents did not need a third daughter. But life in the Philippines was nice and sexy. And my mom was having a great time.
Cue the music. Cue the
very
music.
exotic place to live. And it was a very exciting time of the early 60s. They were doing great work. And they were in charge of all the volunteers and all the projects that the volunteers executed. And so we moved around a lot, and I was always the only white baby. And it was a really exciting role to play because my mom would say, go make a friend, go make a friend, go up the beach, go make a friend, take your bucket and go make a friend. And that just became this, you know, constant ritual. And then when it was over and I found myself in the suburbs of Massachusetts,
wow,
I looked like everybody else. It was go make a friend, go make a friend. And so I found that when I was doing, creating, playing, singing, dancing with other people, I was alive. And so all the hats have that in common, the cosmetics and the writing and the singing, and then the being with you and the other women and men and the Stephen Hanks fundraisers was all about connecting and community. And I'm desperate for it. And now more than ever, we need it. So.
Indeed. And that flows so beautifully into, you know, what called you into the cabaret community. You've been a feature there since 1984. And I feel as though people who are called into cabaret are called because of that connection and a more laser focused sense of storytelling.
I also think for me, the other theme beneath the need to connect is this wanting desperately to create an authentic woman of myself. And I had all the walls and all the masks and all the fairy dust that we all put up in our youth, thinking that we're not interesting. So we need to put all that stuff up. And so cabaret has gently and effectively torn that down. And I think that's the other reason I'm drawn to it. It's you cannot do it successfully without being authentic.
It's yeah, it's the truth. And it's a constant process.
Yes.
It's like, you know, you're never, like the spiritual quest, like anything of great import, it's never ever reached. You are always finding more layers. Well, we're about to need to go to break, but before we do, I'm trying to weave elements of ritual because, as I've shared in so many of my other episodes, ritual is, I hear in your stories, very important to you, Meg Flather, and it is a big part of my work. It's been a big part of the shows that I've created in the cabaret community. So we're going to go out of this section with a little invocation, and it goes like this. You who are as vast as the universe, and you who are as personal as my heartbeat, help me always to speak the truth, to listen with an open mind when others speak, and to remember the peace that may be found in the silence. The wisdom of the universe is truth, and this wisdom and truth flows through me. Help me to be a person of truth in all that I do and all that I say. Open the gate of consciousness through the beauty and power of our voices and of our storytelling, and allow each of us to be seen and heard more fully. And so it is. So stay with us, everyone, when we come back with the glorious Meg Flather on the edge of every day. Stay tuned.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you on edge? Hey, we live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, the host of The Edge of Every Day, which airs each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and perspectives about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. That's The Edge of Every Day on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it on the edge of every day.
And we are back on the edge of every day with Meg Flather. So in this section, when I was thinking about, first of all, let it be said that I'm so moved by the fact that you cared for your mother with dementia for 10 whole years, went through that extraordinary process, which we're going to dive into. And I've spent a lot of time with dementia-riddled elders and dying parents. And then you wrote a book about it. And then you wrote songs about it. And then, or perhaps you were writing songs through the whole thing, if more correctly. But you fashioned all of them into a show as well. To storytell your voice, the voice of your mother, and the voice of the caregivers. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary journey. And so I'm thinking about why would someone do that? To our point about being fearful around grief.
Well, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I can ask this when you're finished. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. I feel like none of it was intentional.
Yeah.
And the songs that usually come first hit me over the head, as I'm at the Morton Williams buying milk, or I'm changing the litter box, or I'm writing a check, or cleaning the bathtub. I hear the song in pretty much in full, and then I connect to the writing apparatus. And as far as the book, I really resisted. I was really struggling with my missing of my mom. I mean, she was the love of my life. And what was interesting about, and that second parent to go, it was like the end of a and seen,
Right,
you know,
truly.
are
Like,
now
what
officially
what does it
launched.
mean to be an orphan?
And so it was during the pandemic, I found myself watching on Netflix a brilliant documentary about Joan Didion. And
Oh, yes, I've seen that.
and at the end of the documentary, she talks about grief and how she lost her husband and her daughter in 1 year. And that is what inspired her to write The Year of Magical Thinking, which I ironically saw on Broadway with my mother as we were grieving my father in 2005. So something about Joan Didion talking about it got me off my arse. And I literally it's all been here waiting for me. The whole book was waiting for me.
It was just hovering.
Yep, and waiting patiently. And then I just sat down and began and wrote. Then I got COVID in January and had to be inside and couldn't really be that productive. I couldn't, do my Pilates or my voice class. So I just tried to write a chapter a day, and that, bookend of time, that forced inside time of having COVID got me through, 8 chapters. So then I was in. But my aim was to really write something to comfort and inspire new families going through this, that it doesn't have to be so sad, and that it is for you, that you are a caregiver. Yes, you think you're doing it for your patient, your client, your loved one, but it is a masterclass for you. And it ends up being the ultimate gift for you. And it's what you have needed all along, and you don't realize it until it's over. And then you realize you're very changed, and in a good way, forever, never the same.
Forever and ever. Yeah. Oh my God, there's so much to unpack in that. And I so deeply relate to every speck of nuance that you just shared. But I'm riveted by the understanding of grief as being isolating and COVID being isolating, and how those lined up for you. Not everyone thrived in COVID. And there was this odd opportunity for you to line those two up, those tracks that were so similar, and to step into it, which leads me into what I was musing on around what does it take to step into that, which immediately made me think about the role of the artist and the courage of the artist. But I don't know that every artist would necessarily want to create something like that. I know plenty would, and just thinking in terms of artists as being people who are more willing to be present, to sit in the emotions, and to explore the journey of them. But it also made me think of the word melancholy and melancholia as one of the humors by Hippocrates, and this notion of the melancholic personality that I think of as an artist is someone who is willing to be deeply present to the grief and the angst and the tumult of life, to mine the beauty, and to therefore put beauty out in the world that, to your point, inspires, uplifts, educates. So that really is, I mean, would you call yourself a melancholic personality?
It's so funny that you're kind of a genius. You do know this, right? You're not just kind of. The way I describe myself is melancholy hopeful. That's how I describe myself. That's
Dude,
how, and I always thought it was the triple Aquarian / Peace Corps baby thing. Because, when you're raised by a father in nonprofit overseas development and a mother who was a fierce midwife in the poorest hospitals in New York City, where she created the clinics, and she created, the safe place for a lot of women who needed her. And she delivered 6,000 babies in New York City. When you're raised by these kind of people that are service, and their whole career is dealing with melancholy. And so it almost felt like,
Epigenetics, it was in you.
yeah, almost mandatory, like being in the theater where everything was so happy. I had to find a way to dampen that down. I was obsessed with lip syncing Gypsy as a little girl. I wanted to be Baby June more than anything in the world. So the melancholy caught up with me, but I feel it's a tonic. I feel like we walk around with these, a heaviness. There's a heaviness, and especially after
As
grief.
we age.
Yes. And I feel like the writing, the creating is the medication of it. It's the tonic of it. I feel like that's when it calms down. It's a little soothed.
Yeah.
Because
It's a
not a
way,
place.
is it a way? Yeah. Like a way for you to really deeply feel it and stay present to it and honor it, not only for yourself, but for your mother and your father and your siblings and all who loved Becky.
Yeah, it's a way to be with it again, too. What's really
Yes.
powerful about doing the show is I get to be with her for an hour, and then I have to let her go again every time. And that's been really hard. That's an interesting post-show challenge I have never experienced before, of what to do with myself. Because, you can't drink a bottle of wine every time.
Talk about it. Well, and have a chat with her afterwards. How was that version? Let's do a download together. Boy, I really discovered this tonight.
I mean, she's always there.
Of
She's
course
always
she is.
there. I mean, she really is. She was a stage mother in many ways, and she still is.
Oh,
Do it, Maggie, do it.
So you do feel as though doing the show has really changed you, in particular the show, not only, of course, the death of both of your parents, but the creation of the show. How do you feel? How can you articulate how doing that process has changed you?
Well, it happened to me, and that's another law that we don't expect as we're kind of go-getters. We have to make, as we're raised as young actors, we're told we've got to make everything happen, and we do. I mean, those of us who did the summer stock and the regional theater for as long as we did, I mean, you have to hustle. And so you have a false sense that you're in control of something. And what's interesting about creating this show is it literally happened to me. I resisted that one as well. And it's all Karina Sauer-Adler and Lisa Vigiano's fault. It's all their fault because
shout out to you, too.
Yes, because there was this wonderful church in New Jersey where Karina was teaching theater arts to her young students, and the minister that was partnering with her during the kind of coming out of the pandemic last summer, and asked if she could create sort of a series of sort of secular shows that had themes that worked also with the ministry of the church. So our friend Lisa did a piece on meditation, and Lisa said, well, Meg will do one on caregiving.
Yes.
And I said, I will. And then again, it's good to have a deadline. So they gave me a date, and the date was, a good 3 months away. And I met with Lenny Watts, my director, and I was sort of tiptoeing around, is this a good idea? And he said, you have to do this. You have to do this. This you must do. So a lot of it was giving myself permission, because it felt like a lot about me, a lot of me. It was all me, my words, my songs, my stories. I felt a little like too full of me. But then when I was reminded it is about service. And
your journey is important, and everyone travels this path,
right,
and needs to hear about it.
And it's kind of ordinary, which is beautiful. It's because
it's absolutely holy and ordinary. I mean, having give my own mother and my sister, my father, who had dementia, was more with my sister, but I've companioned elderly people. The sense of holiness of being with someone who has been on this earth and traversed this journey so profoundly. And has birthed us, and then juxtaposed with, and now I'm going to clean your dirty diaper.
Role reversal with no rehearsal.
It is so, the work is so extraordinary, but the importance, yes, you had to tell it, you had to be present, potentially personally, but for those out there who need to feel supported in their own entrance into this archetype, it's an extraordinary journey, and people need to feel that they're not alone, and you have provided that.
It's interesting how the common denominator so far of the audience members that talk to me after is either they just went through it or it's just beginning.
Barking, yeah.
And it feels so amazing that it's just not about me. It's about all of us. I'm just the one with a megaphone.
About life.
And that's very therapeutic, because I think it can be very lonely to be a performer. And the fact that everyone can relate and everyone is, nodding and understanding every story that I tell, it's the most intimate I've ever had with strangers, intimacy that I've ever had with strangers.
Oh, that's delicious, Meg.
Because
We
the
have to go. Oh, totally. But we have to go to break.
Okay, we'll go to break.
We'll go to break and we will pick this up. And I want, certainly to touch on reaching higher. All of this is reaching higher. Oh, when we come back after the break, we'll be reaching higher with Meg Flather on the edge of every day. Stay tuned.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauvert, employment law, business law attorney, and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping around, kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rained, but it pours on the edge of every day.
And we are back with Meg Flather. So I don't know that I've shared this on my own podcast, but I have shared it as a guest on other podcasts, letting them know that my mother was dying when I was in seminary. And she asked me while she was dying to be the minister at her funeral. And yeah, and we planned it together and we wrote her obituaries together. And it was such the edge of every day, such excruciating pain, and such a gift. And I'll never forget, I was with her, and I know that you were with your mom the moment she died. And profound beauty of that, the agony and the profound beauty. But what I didn't anticipate, and I'm sure no one does until, you can talk about this on paper till you're blue in the face, but you can't experience until you're in that moment, is sense of, I felt her. I had to go take my family through a ritual. They had all flown down after she died. No one got to see her except me and my father. The rest of the family couldn't see her or her body. And I had to do a ritual on the beach down in Florida. And I had the sense of walking out there and feeling her really hugely, but feeling released to be me.
Mhm.
Did you experience that?
Oh gosh, that's extraordinary.
Like,
What's interesting about your story is your mother was sharp. So you got to really talk about what was coming.
yes.
And I had that with my father for 9 months. And that was such an incredible feeling of filling yourself up with the person to have forever.
Yes.
And being intentional about it and sort of almost like documenting it, like I'm
Yes.
going to talk about this and this and this. And it does make the grief easier because you've given yourself the conversations, especially as an adult woman. We need all that.
I wouldn't say it was easier. The grief was easier, but certainly there was, I had filled my basket with a lot of pieces that were important to me. Absolutely.
That you could hold on to after.
Mhm.
And with mom, those kind of conversations happened her whole parenting. When we were taking care of my father at the end at Sloan Kettering, she said, Meggie, I am not doing this. We are not doing this. I'm sick. You throw me off the balcony. Got it?
Oh
She-
my God, God bless her.
As a woman of medicine, she was like, I am not going to deal with sickness. I am not dealing with hospitals. And one of the things that was fascinating is they were both so proactive with their DNR and all their legal paperwork about what they wanted. And before she agreed to move into the building to let me care for her, I had to promise one thing, and it was the hardest, biggest, haunting promise of my life. With her little finger pointed in my face, she said, no nursing home. And I said, well, Mom, no nursing home unless medically necessary. She said, no nursing home. So we had to keep this going. And I had that, and she was very much alive and very much there, but wasn't speaking anymore. And it really was the pact of all pacts. So I just prayed for the most amazing death for her, what she wanted. She wanted an old-fashioned death in her bed, no drugs, no fluids, no drama, no hospice, no nothing, just me and Turner Classic Movies playing in the background.
Like that rarely happens in today's world. And she, as a
that's what
medical
she
person,
told.
knows that.
And I think that was the reward. I every night I would talk to my father and say, you've got to take care of this soon. This is getting hard. It's getting hard in there. It's a 1929 building, with tubs that we had to step in, and it was getting harder to bathe, or it was getting harder, but we were doing it. I had the most amazing team of caregivers with me from all over the planet. These extraordinary women brought all their cultures to my mother's apartment, which is what she would have wanted as a Peace Corps director's wife. I mean, we had so much beauty.
The diversity. Yeah.
Yes. All the cultures, all the sounds, all the accents, the music, the foods, the different ways of doing things. And so anyway, she had a stroke, a peaceful stroke, and we put her to bed, and she slept for 28 hours. And then at the very end, she took a little breath. I got to hear her voice. I got to say, I love you. And off she went. She was exquisite. There was no panting. There was no anxiety. There was no fear. There was no pain. There was no gurgle, no rattle, no fluids, no diapers to change. She was pristine. She was everything she wanted to be. And that to me was the bizarre gift that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
She got her death. She got her death the way she wanted it. And I felt like that was the reward for everything. Her whole life, the woman that carried everyone on her back, the woman who raised 4 kids, married a very fascinating, complicated Gemini who was in love with his passport and international service. That wasn't easy. And it was amazing, but it wasn't easy. And then, of course, her own service to women's health and women's rights and women's right to choose. So she got her ending. And that gave me more faith than I think anything has in my life, because there was this beautiful call and response. So if there is a heaven, if there is a God, if there is a force, which I do believe there is, it heard me, it heard us, and it gave us what we wanted.
So your sense of, I don't want to let go of this sense, did you feel a sense of release in terms of being who you are? But to piggyback on what you just finished with, this sense of your sense of how you anticipate your own death, did it change? Did you have a sense of release to be more of who you are at all? Maybe you didn't. Maybe I just sort of felt like that was an initiation of sorts that I never would have expected to have after my best friend died.
I think courage, because I think what I heard from both my parents is whatever annoyed them about my self-doubt, my putting my light under a bushel, toning myself down, silencing my voice, why me? Why not you, Margaret? Why not you?
Yeah.
That is what it's like. They haunt me. She's here and he's here pushing me to live more fully. And so I think I have more courage than I've ever had. And I think I also have realized I'm very strong, and I didn't know I was strong because I would tell myself I wasn't strong, because I think the career that we chose was so overwhelming, all the rejection and all the comparing and the despair.
You don't see that as having to navigate as finding some ridiculous level strength.
But I think it was the caring, the slow goodbye, the not getting depressed or sad about it in the moment. That all waited for me. What was fascinating is she didn't make me sad, because she didn't make me sad because she wasn't sad, so I couldn't be sad. She was somehow fantastic in her dementia.
Oh my God, this makes me, I highlighted this section that I must read for all of you. This will make you, this is, I hate these screens. This is Meg's book. I have a signed copy. Thank you very much. But this so jumped out at me. I missed my sharp mother every time I entered her nest, her bubble, but I found use in her decline because she found use in it. That blew me away. I loved it. If she had been miserable, this would have been a different story, but my mother had found a way to soar into a reality that textbooks had predicted would make me very sad. Well, it didn't make me sad. And thank God I knew to climb aboard the Becky ship, to beg, borrow, steal, and store for life everything she could teach me each day until she went to sleep forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like this constant course in everything you do not know to be true. Like, oh, that's the truth. Oh, that's the truth. We're here. It's a circle, But to answer your question about the moment when she died, it was crazy. I didn't expect the beauty.
Yeah.
I didn't expect how ready I would be.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of mercy. I think it happened when it was time to happen, and we were ready, and it was beautiful, and it was everything she wanted. And in her last breath, which so crazy, is I felt my birth. And I didn't expect that. And I felt this moment of all the dimensions happening at the same time. And could my whole life have happened just for this moment? And to think like that was new for me. So it wasn't about work and career and your name and your age and your social security number and your paycheck and your
it was
resume.
Life is holy and time travel.
it was just this one moment, maybe everything, all that stuff was like what I did to get here, but like everything was that moment. And I think that has informed me more than anything else. And as a result, I don't feel she's gone. I feel she's in a different dimension, and I have to work harder now. I miss her so much. I miss her voice.
Guess what? It never goes away.
No.
I'm at 16 years now, Meg.
Oh,
And it is like
our mothers.
Yesterday. Well, and yet you do go on. As you well know, you do, you learn to live with, and this is the beauty of aging and eldership and understand, and we're back to melancholy, understanding the edge of every day of melancholy, that yes, both things are true. Life is sad and life is beautiful. And that this is the dance of opposites.
I think the lesson that's hard for me to really chew and release is that life with her, that childhood, that adolescence, those rituals, those Christmases, those birthdays, those theater dates, those meeting on 9th Avenue for her chicken quesadilla that she called quesadilla. Like it's that part is over.
Yeah.
And this idea of, well, what do I do now? And so there was this scrambling to try to like make Christmas. And it just was devastating because it could never be. Even the simple little Christmases that we did in her little apartment where I just put holly around the TV stand and lit a candle, like those to me were the most amazing Christmases, but that's gone now. And so now what I have to trust, and this is, I think, the ultimate lesson, is I try to just wait and not fill space as much as I used to. And I kind of wait for the miracle. I wait for the message. I wait for the lesson, whether it's a stranger, whether it's the doorman, whether it's a text, like somebody gives me the miracle, somebody gives me the connection, and I feel better. But I think that's kind of the great Becky and Roger gift, is I don't rush to fill. And I was always rushing to fill. I was prematurely filling spaces. And now I'm able to bear. Like I'm just getting through this month, Sandra, just going to get through this month. But then in the 11th hour, something happens where I feel Christmas. It's small, it's a little light, but I wait patiently for it.
And on that note, that beautiful waiting patiently, I so hear you, Meg. We need to go to break. And when we come back, we're going to get Meg's leading edge. What is next for her? What is she hoping for her books, her songs, her show in the future as she waits for her answer? Stay with us on the edge of every day. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Chipping or kick my brain to the ground. These are the days it never rains, but it pours on the edge of every day.
And we are back. Oh, this conversation. Before I dive back in, I do have to just say and we've had the epitome of this. Life on the edge of every day. My understanding of my life on the edge of every day has 3 rules. The first one is paradox, of course. The dance of the opposites, the tension of the paradoxes. That life is a mystery, and that we are walking yin-yang fluidity. And the quicker we embrace that, and the more we embrace that, the more we will know ourselves and know each other. The second one is, of course, change. There's nothing more constant than change. And the third is humor. Humor.
Oh, yeah. That.
Jesus Christ. Well, we have chuckled a little bit in this conversation,
Yes.
but just the ability to laugh first and foremost at ourselves and not take life so seriously, even in all of this.
Yes.
This entire dance through grief, my God, I'm sure, and the death of your parents. The moments we found to laugh and poke fun of ourselves, and just how was really quite something. So I always want to weave that into the show at some point, and this feels like the perfect place. And before we dive into what's up next for you, remember, you can find Meg at megflather.com. You can find both of her books. Do you have links on your website, Meg?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you can go directly and type them in at amazon.com as well. And you've got 2 YouTube channels, yes?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think I do.
I know you do.
I have a YouTube
I've been
channel.
doing my research on
Yes,
you.
you're very good. Very good. I know I have a YouTube channel. And on the channel, which is I'm really excited about, is a playlist of the songs, because I recorded all the songs throughout this chapter of, being an AIDS volunteer, being my father's volunteer, being my mother's volunteer. And so the songs that are in the show are now in a playlist, and anyone can listen to them. So you enter Hold On Tight, a Love Story playlist at YouTube. And then if you get the book, you can read and listen and read and listen, and you can hear how the songs fill out what the pages don't always share in the book.
Oh, beautiful.
Because music can do things that, music gets so much done in 3 minutes.
Well, it is, it works at a variety of levels and connects, and energetic levels, and connects dots that we don't even anticipate, as all good art does, which is the theme of our show. How art heals and expands and educates and uplifts. And so what is next for you? What is your leading edge, Meg?
My leading edge. Well, first, to get through the holidays.
All right. No, I so hear that.
Oh, but it's she's worth it. He's worth it. Like that's the piece. I wrote this song called Like a Sunday to articulate what my grief felt like. And I wrote it that I want to feel the grief because she's worth it. I don't mind feeling this ache that feels like a Sunday afternoon for the rest of my life because she is worth it. He is worth it. So I'm going to feel the ache and get through the holidays feeling the ache. Maybe not get through the holidays, swim through the holidays and feel the ache. But I'm very excited that I scheduled doing the show again on December 28th.
So which I will be at, Meg.
Oh, you're coming to see it?
Ah, yes, indeed.
Oh my goodness. Okay. But it's December 28th at 7 at the oldest continuing cabaret, Don't Tell Mama, with the extraordinary Tracy Stark on piano. And I wanted to talk about them for a second, because I feel like out of all the shows I've ever done, I have relied on my team for this more than anything, because I was so scared of making a complete ass of myself. And Lenny Watts and Tracy together guided me and gave me permission to tell these stories and sing these songs and bear a lot. And I just have to say, we need our teachers, we need our team, because if I didn't have all that time with them in rehearsal, I could have second guessed, and you can't once you go out there. So there's my Christmas spirit right there. Lenny Watts and Tracy Stark and Sydney Meyer, who gives us a home, and beautiful Connor Weiss, who was our our lighting person when we did the festivals, because the festivals were scary. I never did that before. And I was older than many of the contestants in the festivals, those children.
You are an elder. You are #Crone leading the way.
I'm like, oh, you're like my mom's age. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah,
but it was good for me. So again, Becky, courage, throw yourself into a festival, throw yourself into a new room, try this, be in a different theater. Don't have a microphone. Just let the voice carry. I mean, it was all so good for me. And I think the reason I had the courage was my team promised me I was ready. So that's what's next. And then the ultimate goal is to find a home for the show. I'm looking at little theaters in New York, anyone that has a room where they
and you're coming to the Plum. She's coming to the Plum. She and I are in dialogue about coming to the Plum in the Catskills.
Wait, that's going to be extraordinary. And just any room that thinks this show will be useful. I don't even need a stool. Yeah. I just need a room.
And I'm sure many people will step forward to fulfill that. And I can't wait for my community up here in the Catskills to see this, because so many of the community here is facing exactly what you're facing. So
it's an epidemic.
We just have a bit more time. So again, go for my YouTube channel. It's Sandra Bargman, On the Edge of Every Day. Please subscribe. For Meg Flather, it's megflather.com, and you can also find all of her music on her YouTube channel, Meg Flather. Meg Flather, thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing again your wisdom and your insight and your warmth and your kindness and your talent.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Again, this is another example of that invisible world taking care of everything for you. I didn't have to fill the space. Out of nowhere, you reached out, you remembered me in all that you're doing. You got you said you just literally got the thought.
I got the download.
And
I was working on another script. I went, oh no, we got to talk about grief with Meg Flather. Okay.
And that's the perfect lesson right there.
Amen. It is indeed. So Meg, any last couple words of wisdom for our listeners before we say goodbye?
If you are beginning this journey of caregiving, you have to remember to care for yourself first. You have to take care of yourself so you can take care of another. You have to fill up the vessel so the vessel can give. And you need support. Nobody does this alone. You need time off. And you need a safe place to have all the feelings, because the one thing I have to say, I'm so glad I didn't bring my sad feelings to my mother, because it would have confused her. But I brought my sad feelings elsewhere. And that it is for you.
To your show and to your craft and to the world.
And that's why the arts are so important, because we can go and sit and feel and cry and then go back and do our jobs.
Indeed. And on that note, I want to thank all of my listeners for tuning in. Check out megflather.com. And remember, always remember, you are at the edge of the miraculous. Until we speak again, see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. under pressure.